Unapologetic.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. You know how to lead, you know how to deliver. But when success starts costing you your center, your peace, your presence, your sense of you, it's not really success. It's self-abandonment dressed up as achievement. Because behind the perfectly managed calendar and the composed demeanor, there's another truth playing quietly in the background. It's the part no one sees, but you can't seem to shake. You're tired of holding it all together on the outside while feeling disconnected from yourself on the inside. You want to lead from center, but some days you're not even sure where that center is. And you can't even remember the last time you slowed down long enough to ask yourself, what do I need? How do I feel? And will this choice support the life I say I want to build? Not the one you're managing, not the one they expect, but the one that would actually feel like yours. That kind of leadership, self-leadership, the kind that doesn't burn you out or box you in, requires more than just strategy. It requires self-trust. Now, if you're the one everyone counts on, the one who makes it all look so easy, the one who stays composed and handles it all, but you're doing it while quietly overriding your own needs, and the outside of your life looks successful, but inside you're tired of pretending you're okay when you're not, and you're craving a version of success that actually feels like you, then stay with me, because I'm going to walk you through how to reconnect with your center using 3 simple but powerful questions so that you can start honoring what you feel, what you need, and what actually serves you before saying yes to anyone or anything else. Now, this isn't about slowing down just for the sake of rest. It's about learning how to trust your inner signals again so that every choice, every commitment, and every yes comes from a place of clarity, not performance. And that's what we're rebuilding today, starting with the question that almost never gets asked, at least not out loud. And that question is, what do I need? Because when you're the capable one, the go-to person, the grounded one, the one who always seems to be okay, it's not that you don't need anything, it's that you've trained yourself not to ask. Because slowing down to check in, well, that's not what gets praised, right? What gets praised is endurance, hustle, being able to carry it all and still smile while you do it. So your brain skips right past what you need and jumps straight to what's expected of me right now. Now, at first glance, it might sound indulgent, like a luxury. But asking, what do I need, isn't selfish. It's honest. And high-functioning women, we don't skip this question because we're unclear. We skip it because we're afraid of what the answer might reveal. Because what if what you need is rest, but you've already promised to deliver, whether that's finishing a project, showing up for your team, or stepping in so a deadline doesn't get missed, even if it means pushing yourself past empty, all without dropping a single ball. What if what you need is space, but everyone's waiting on you to show up like you always do? And what if what you need is to change your mind, but it's going to disappoint someone else and you're afraid of what that might say about you? So instead of asking, you bypass, you push, you power through because you don't want to seem like a flake or ungrateful or soft. And that pressure becomes so automatic that you stop noticing the override because it doesn't feel like something's wrong. It feels like you're doing everything right. The full calendar, the last minute, sure, I've got it. The way you push your needs off until the weekend, the way you skip lunch, not because you forgot, but because it didn't feel justifiable. And on the outside, you look like someone who's got it all figured out, like you've got it all together. But on the inside, you're bracing for the next demand before you've recovered from the last one. You're stretched so thin, maybe even possibly burning out, and you're craving space, quiet permission to not hold it all, but you've stopped believing that you're even allowed to ask for it. And the deeper truth here is that you can't trust yourself if you don't know how to ask yourself what you actually need. Because when your default is to override your needs to meet expectations, you lose the very clarity you're trying to lead with. And this disconnect doesn't just happen overnight. It sneaks in quietly as tension you ignore, as restlessness you dismiss, as that quiet sense that you're showing up, but not fully in it. You start moving through your day in task mode, but emotionally, you're checked out. You say yes with your mouth while your gut clenches. You're present, but not really. Because underneath the productivity, there's a layer you haven't had time or permission to explore. And it starts with a question that I believe most women were never taught to ask or even give ourselves permission to ask. And that question is, how do I feel? This is the one you're most likely to skip without realizing it. Not because you don't have feelings, but because you've taught yourself to function through them. You've told yourself, I can deal with that later. I'll process it after I finish this project. There's no time for that right now. You've trained yourself to believe that emotional awareness is optional, like it's something you earn only after you've proven your value. But when you suppress how you feel just to stay on task, you're not being strong. You're being invisible to yourself. And eventually that catches up with you as low-level emotional noise that never really quiets down. It shows up as reactivity, irritability, snapping when you don't mean to, numbing when you swore you'd stay present, and saying yes when your whole body is screaming no, but you can't justify saying it. Because without space to feel how you feel, every decision becomes emotionally noisy. You start mistaking urgency for importance. You start saying yes just to relieve the tension or to keep the peace. And your choices stop coming from clarity and start coming from pressure. And here's what I want you to understand. Your feelings are data, not distractions. And ignoring them doesn't make you more capable. It just makes your nervous system work overtime to compensate for the clarity you're refusing to give yourself. And you can't lead from clarity if you're disconnected from the emotional truth underneath your choices. Self-trust can't live in a system that sees feelings as a liability. Because when you don't trust yourself to feel, you won't trust yourself to choose. And this is a moment where I believe as women, we stop short. Because feeling your way through a decision requires more than awareness. It requires honesty. And that kind of honesty can feel confronting. Because once you acknowledge how you feel, the next question gets louder. The one that doesn't just challenge your beliefs, but it could challenge your schedule, your standards, your pace, your patterns. And that question is, will this choice support my greater good, the life I'm building? This is where we confront the quiet contradiction, the one that looks like high standards on the surface, but underneath, it's self-betrayal in slow motion. Because you say you want a life of peace, a business that feels spacious, boundaries that honor your well-being, time for family, connection, and rest. But when the moment comes to choose that life, you default back to what's familiar, not what's aligned. You say yes to the client even though you're at capacity. You take the meeting because rescheduling feels awkward. You check your messages at dinner because silence makes you anxious. It's like you're not comfortable being still, not being in the doing. And from the outside, it looks like you're just being responsible, like you're committed, that you're professional, that you're driven. But on the inside, you're frustrated, you're exhausted, and you're disconnected from the version of success that you say you're building. Because the truth is, we often don't realize how often we're trading our long-term vision for short-term relief. Relief from guilt, relief from discomfort, relief from someone else's expectations or disappointment. And the cost is cumulative Because every time you say yes to something that isn't in service to the life you say you want, you teach your nervous system that your words don't mean much. You lose credibility with yourself. And that erosion is what makes the next aligned decision harder to make because you've lost the muscle memory of choosing based on truth instead of pressure. This question, will this decision support the life I say I want to build, becomes a filter, not to slow you down, but to remind you of the life you promised yourself. Because if your choices don't support that vision, it's not that the dream is out of reach, it's that you keep defaulting to patterns that weren't designed to build it. So let me show you what this might look like in the real world, because chances are you've lived this exact moment or something similar. You open your calendar and you see back-to-back meetings. One of them is a standing meeting you set 3 months ago when your schedule looked different. But you're looking at it now and you feel it. Your chest starts to get tight. Your stomach drops just a little. You're already behind on a key priority and you told yourself that this was the week for deep work. And this meeting, it's not urgent. It could be rescheduled, but it would require you to say, I need to shift this. You stare at the screen. You hesitate because technically you could still show up. You always do. But this time something feels off. And that's the moment, the one you usually skip past. And instead, you pause, you breathe, you ask, what do I need? You realize you need uninterrupted time to focus. Your nervous system is already tight from task switching. You need space, quiet, presence, not more obligation. And then you ask, how do I feel? Well, if you're being honest, you're probably feeling a little bit resentful. Like this meeting is taking more than it gives. And underneath that, you also feel guilt for even considering rescheduling because you pride yourself on being reliable. And then you finally ask yourself, will this decision to go to this meeting support my greater good? And that's when you realize, honestly, no. You realize that if you show up to this meeting just to be professional, that it will cost you your flow, your energy, and your clarity for something far more important. And you realize that the trade-off isn't worth it. Because as you may have heard me say countless times on this podcast, with every yes, there is a trade. So you decide. You reschedule, not because you're flaking, not because you're avoiding, but because you're listening to the part of you that's learned to override herself and choosing not to this time. That's what self-trust looks like in real life. And maybe no one else sees that moment, the pause you took, the boundary you honored, the decision you made without over-explaining. But that's the moment where something shifts. Because when you stop defaulting to what's expected and you start choosing what's true for you, you begin to realize just how much of your life has been shaped around proving you're strong enough to keep going. Listen, you've probably been told or had it modeled for you that being unstoppable means you keep going, no matter what, that you push through and you keep saying yes, that needing space is weakness, that slowing down is risky, that rest makes you soft, which is why you became the one who always shows up, the one who always delivers, and the one who takes pride in being unshakable, even when something inside you is shaking. And on the outside, it works because no one's questioning your strength and no one doubts your capacity. But the truth? You're not moving as an unstoppable woman. You're just uninterrupted. And there's a difference. Because being unstoppable isn't about pushing through every signal your body sends. It's about being able to hear those signals and trust them enough to choose differently. It's not about never slowing down. It's about knowing when to pause without guilt or justification. And it's not about always saying yes. It's about knowing that your no is just as powerful, maybe even more so. Unstoppable doesn't mean you never doubt. It means when the doubt comes, you don't abandon yourself in it. Because here's the real belief shift. Unstoppable women aren't defined by how much they take on. They're the ones who trust themselves the most to pause when it's easier to push, to choose what's aligned even when it's inconvenient, and to protect their peace like it's part of the plan, not the reward for surviving it. They trust that rest won't derail them, that boundaries won't make them less valuable, and that clarity is more important than compliance. They don't shrink, but they also don't stretch themselves thin just to prove they're strong. They build lives and definitions of success that feel like home. Not because they've arrived, but because they stopped outsourcing their worth to output. And if you're sitting here thinking, but who would I be if I stopped pushing? That's the edge. That's the place where the old story ends and the new truth emerges, your new truth. Because it was never about proving you could hold it all. It's always been about learning to hold yourself. And when you finally do, that's when the weight starts to shift. So if you've been wondering why everything still feels so heavy, why decisions drain you, why the clarity you crave always seems one step behind, maybe it's not because you're unclear. Maybe it's because you haven't had space to ask yourself what you actually need. Because being unapologetic isn't about being loud, and being unstoppable isn't about doing more. It's about learning to listen to your body, to your energy, to your emotional truth, and trusting yourself enough to choose accordingly. So the next time you feel pulled in 10 directions or you catch yourself overriding your own needs out of habit, pause and ask yourself, what do I need? How do I feel? And will this decision support the life I say I want to build? You don't need to get it perfect. You just need to practice turning toward yourself before you turn outward for answers. Because self-trust isn't something you earn. It's something you remember, one aligned choice at a time. And if you're craving more clarity around what it looks like to lead from your center instead of obligation, check the show notes from my email address and send me a message. And let's talk about what's quietly costing you your energy and what it could feel like to finally stop proving and start trusting. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope this conversation gave you something real to take with you, something that you can carry, not just consider. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
I'm Iris, host of Or Whatever Movies and the forthcoming Powers of Darkness podcast. For the better part of a decade, we've been unraveling a literary mystery that begins with a strange version of Dracula. Yes, that Dracula. It's a different story, imbued with a potentially insidious agenda. What we've already found so far reshapes what we thought we knew, but the investigation isn't over. Support our efforts to finish what we've started and bring the full story to light. Go now to Kickstarter.com and search up Powers of Darkness to learn more. Coming soon on Electricast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Electricast.
Ever thought about starting your own podcast?
Do you have a business or a message you want to share with the world?
Well, now it's easier than ever with Electricast. Hi, I'm Mark Netter.
And I'm Peter Rafelson. We're the founders of Electricast Media.
Whether you want to start a new podcast or already have one, join Electricast to grow your audience, monetize your content, and build your community.
With our simple sign-up, you get free promotion, world-class analytics, premium ads, and personal support.
Go to electricast.com and join our community today.
Electricast. Transform your influence.
Electricast. Electricast.